Well, hello everyone. How's everyone this evening? Come on in. How are you this evening? Oh, goodness. How's everybody? It's been a busy day completely. How's everyone? How are you? Come on in. I'm so glad that you are here. I welcome to Reflections. Reflections is our weekly discussion about just some issues that women address in the workplace. And then we know that we have several men that join us on a regular basis. So I'm so glad that you're here this evening. So come on in again. Welcome to Reflections. It's a part of my Fight to Smile brand, and Fight to Smile is a campaign for women to continue to challenge and encourage women to keep their head up, to stand strong, and despite the challenges, despite the struggles, despite the tears, continue to fight to smile. So, with that, hello. So tonight, let's jump right in. Well, actually, before we do, I want to share. Let me see if I can do this. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it. I'm just gonna have to show you and then come back and talk about it. So let me show this. Let me go back to me. Okay, maybe I have to remove me and then I can show it. So I'm gonna show you a new project that my sister-in-law just dropped yesterday. So, my dear, sweet, talented, incredibly intelligent, brilliant, genius of a sister in love. She's married to my brother Stephen, and she is a board certified neonatologist. And she wrote a book, and it's called Big Sis Visits NICU. So make sure I got that right because she just dropped it yesterday. But I'm just so excited. But it is a kid's book, and it is for families who have preemies, have premature babies that are born, who spend lots of time, out days, weeks, even months in the hospital. And this book prepares the older sibling for what it is like to have a young sibling in the hospital, and what that experience will be like until the baby is big enough and strong enough to finally come home. So, what an incredible project it is. I'm so excited for her. And I probably will have her on my other show that I have not started back yet in 2022, but I'll probably have Dr. Terry Major Kincaid on that show soon. But what a, big shout out, big kudos to my sister-in-law, my sister-in-love, Dr. Terry Major Kincaid, and her new project. And it's for families who are experiencing the trauma of going through the NICU experience or the premature birth experience. But, it's a great book that shares strategies and stories of success. So kudos to Terry, and kudos to those families who are currently going through and who have been through that whole premature birth process. So kudos. So tonight we're talking about emotional baggage and trauma. And I'm sure you're like, well, what does that have to do with the workplace? Well, it really doesn't. But it's something that I was dealing with, and it was a revelation for me this morning. So I was like, you know what? That's what I want to talk about on the show tonight. So I'm reminded of a story that I have about a student. And the student, this was when I was actually teaching K-12. And the student was just beside herself this particular day, and then very emotional. And I finally was able to pull her to the side and, really get through to her so that she would let those walls down and talk to me. And she talked about how it was the anniversary of her brother's death, of her uncle's death. And she was just devastated. She was shocked. She was, it was just, she was just flooded, overwhelmed with emotion. And, so I felt for her, I grieved for her. But then at that point, at some point, she said that it was her fault that her uncle had died and that her uncle was killed. And I'm like, what? And apparently, he was going to the store, or she made a request that he go to the store and bring her back something. And while he was at the store, I believe the store was robbed and so on. And he ended up getting shot and he died. So she carried that guilt with her, feeling like it was her fault that he died. And even though we know that that is a child's brain, but had she not shared that at that point with me, then much longer, how long would she have carried that emotional baggage, carried that guilt that clearly was not her fault? But so that really made me think about, some of the trauma that we're still carrying from our childhood brain, that our adult brain says that makes no sense. We understand that we're not responsible for these things, but yet that childlike brain is still holding on to the emotional baggage. So let's fast forward to a conversation I was having with one of my girlfriends. We went out to lunch on Sunday. We had a lovely time. It was one of those, catch up, let's talk. So we had already eaten lunch. They had cleared the table. They kept walking past us like they wanted us to leave, but we still had water. So we weren't leaving and we still had things to talk about. So we were just chatting, chopping it up, having a good time. And actually, it wasn't until this morning that something really hit me, something that I have carried in the back of my mind, but that was still my young, not so much child, but it was definitely my adolescent brain that was still holding on to something. And that something was still impacting some of the decisions that I was still making in present day. So I'll share it. First of all, let me see, are there any questions or comments before I start divulging all my private business? Um, hey, James, I haven't seen you in a while. I've seen you post and you went to a marriage conference recently. So kudos to you and to your lovely wife. So thanks for joining. But so I was thinking back to many years ago when I was still caring for my mother. My mother was terminally ill during this time. And when I was faithful in the church, I was faithfully involved in ministry. And I was, doing everything I could to live according to what I believed were godly principles and godly standards. And during that time, I was living a life of abstinence, meaning I was not participating in sexual intercourse because I was not married. Okay. So, and of course, my daughter is calling me right now. So I was caring for my mother. My mother was terminally ill, and she was ill at that time with still a disease that was new to us. It was new to society. It was still new. She was dying of AIDS at that time. And and I've shared that story on previous episodes of Reflections. So my mother was dying, and we were going through just all the things you go through when you're taking care of someone who's terminally ill. So, me, all of my friends, family members, we were believing God for a miracle. We were believing God that He would heal her, He would restore her. So during that time again, like I said, I was abstinent and I started dating a young man, and um, we had sex. Okay. I was trying to refrain, you know, trying to abstain, I should say. And we had sex. So if you're in the church and somebody's going to say, oh, you fell into sin, we had sex. Okay. And I was overcome with guilt. I just felt ashamed. I felt like I had let God down. It was just awful. I was just carrying this guilt, this shame, right? So I remember telling someone who was, older. She wasn't a minister, but she was one of the leaders. And I remember telling her because I just felt so bad and I was remorseful and I was crying. And I'll never forget when I told her what happened, she just went off on me and told me that, that is sin, and you have too much on you to be falling into sin. And and you're believing God to heal your mother, but because of this, he's not going to do it and your mother's going to die. And I mean, she went off on me. Do you understand me? As a young person, I was in my early 20s. She tells me that my mother was going to die because I had sex one time with this person. And in my mind, I knew that that couldn't be true. I knew the word of God. And I knew that that is not true. You are tripping, you are lying, you're just trying to, beat me up with guilt. And in my mind, I knew that, but I think still that young person, that brain who's not fully developed and all of that, it still kind of weighed in the back of my mind, even through the years, because needless to say, my mother died. My mother didn't die because I fell into sin. She didn't die because of that. She died because the disease ran its course. And but I just remember, and it just kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning this morning. It's like, oh my God, I see where, some other decisions that I have made since then, where that stemmed from, where that shame and where that guilt came from, so it just made me, wonder, how many other people are just walking around with shame and guilt that's not even yours. It's not even yours. It's not yours to carry. It's, just like, when I had my student who thought it was her fault that her uncle, was killed. How many of us walk away or still carrying that kind of stuff on us? Oh, hey, James. I was seeing if I had any comments. Anybody with me tonight? Anybody have any comments about what I'm talking about? Let's see. I'm just trying to go onto YouTube and see. I think I changed the settings on YouTube, but nevertheless, I think about those kind of things and then how they continue to impact us, even in our decision makings, and and how it can become cyclic or cyclic. Is that how you pronounce the word? Where it comes back year after year on anniversaries, different anniversaries. And and it makes me wonder, just how do we respond when our friends come to us and tell us something that's disappointing? How do we respond when our family members, parents, how do we respond when our kids tell us something disappointing that they did, they thought, they didn't do? How do we respond? Do we immediately go off the handle? Do we beat them down? Because inevitably, if you're in a relationship with someone, be it parent and be it relationship, intimate relationship, be it friendships, At some point, somebody's going to do something that's going to disappoint you. And how do we initially respond? Because it's in that initial response that leaves lifelong or could leave at least long term impact. I have one of my dearest friends, love her to pieces, Gilda. And I remember I called her one day and I had to tell her something that I had done and it was not good at the time. It was bad. And I just blah, 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 blah. I just put it out there. And she was like, I love Gilda. She said, okay, wow, that's a lot. She said, so give me a day to process this. And I was like, okay. And she came back later and she came with the wisdom, the guidance that I expected from her. And sometimes when people come to us with some disappointing some disappointing information, sometimes we have to just be like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Or wow, okay. Sometimes we have to walk away because it's that initial response. Sometimes we blow our tops, we go off, and in those moments we tear down the very relationship that the person was coming to us and depending on us for. So, hey, Ursula. Oh my God, that's one of my high school friends from like ninth grade. That was a couple years ago. Hey, ladies, good to see you. But yeah, so that initial response, even in the workplace. Okay, I am gonna tie it to the workplace. What happens when your team member, your staff member, your boss, they come to you and they tell you something, they've dropped the ball, or and that's a funny analogy, but they didn't do their part. How do you respond? Because if you respond blowing your cool and cussing and all that, then that just sets up an atmosphere where then people want to hide from you. And if you're the boss, you want people to be able to come to you and tell you, look, I messed this up so that we can fix this. We can get it right. We can restore relationships or be on the front end so that our partnerships will not be impacted by this error, as opposed to them being totally afraid to come to you and then they constantly hiding stuff, hiding. So so that's how I was able to tie in the workplace, because I really didn't think I was going to be able to do that, and I didn't have time to really work this through. But the bottom line is, that I wanted to focus on tonight has to deal with how do you handle when your family, friends, colleagues, coworkers come to you and they have not done what you expected them to do, or they have dropped the ball, or they have not lived up to the commitment that was made. How do you respond? And am I saying that in all cases that, you're going to, oh, okay, that's cool, and can just, be cool with it? I'm not saying all of that, but I am saying that we do need to be mindful that if we are getting ready now to respond with degrading people, being belligerent, tearing people down, that's more destructive than anything. Sometimes we just need to walk away. We just need to walk away. So I cannot believe that where the time has gone. The time has just blown away already. No comments. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Again, I want to give a shout out to my sister-in-law, my sister in love, who has a new project out, and I'm gonna show the book again and put it up again. Here it is. It's called Big Six Visits NICU, and just an incredible, to see little kids of color on the cover of an animated book is just incredible. So I'm so excited for her. But this book is for those families who are going through the experience of having prenatal birth and having babies that are confined to a prenatal unit. And there, I remember reading a part. Well, there's a part in her book where she's highlighting that the greatest distance is between you and the child and the glass that's in between. And so anyway, the book is unique. I don't know how many other, books are out there for families who have children that are involved, that are born and cared for in the NICU, which is, the neonatal ICU area of the hospital. So again, I'm excited for Terry. I'm going to have her on my other show real soon. And that's all that I have tonight. I'm going to end it here because I don't want to start rambling. But again, I just wanted to say that we should just take a moment, step back, and be mindful of how we respond when people share with us things that are disappointing, that are heartbreaking, and that we just don't expect to hear from them. How do we respond? Do we beat them up? Do we shut them down? Do we cuss them out? Do we tear them down even further? And they came to you for support in the first place, and then all they received was more belittling, more shame, more guilt. So because that initial response has lasting impact. It truly does. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm so glad you took the time to watch this or to be a part. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Again, my name is Neita, and you can visit me on my website at Dr. Neita at Dr. What is it? My website is www.drneita.com. So thank you again, and you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening.